Of all the traits of great leadership, there is one super trait: the willingness to genuinely invest in another person's success. Now, the universal law of serving states the only way to get what you want in life is by first helping others get what they want in life. So in other words, the only way I can get what I want is by first helping enough other people to get what they want. Now that philosophy, if you're a student of religion, it is rooted in every major religion worldwide. Some people know it as the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. However, there's a real challenge to this philosophy. In today's society, we teach people that as they go into every situation and every opportunity, they should approach it and ask themselves this one question: what's in it for me? We don't ask now, what can I do for others, but what can they do for me? What's in it for me? Now, that philosophy is the polar opposite of the law of serving. Yet when a man or woman subscribes to the law of serving, it's absolutely staggering how the world of abundance begins to open up to them. When you look at all highly successful people, they're always driven by this philosophy of serving others first. It's a philosophy of helping other people, and by helping those people, that's what drives their ultimate success. I want to share an example of this in action. I was working with a gentleman named Scott Barber. Now, Scott had recently left a large organisation and he'd started up his own business. So he'd reached out to myself and the team, and he'd asked us to coach him through this process, to guide him of setting up his business and ensure that he was on the right path as a new business owner. So anyway, one day we got this phone call from Scott, and he asked for an urgent meeting, telling the receptionist that he needed to speak with me immediately, and today if possible. And he was like really sounding irate, and the receptionist said, Scott, yeah, slow down. He says, I can see that you're in the diary for an appointment later on in the week. Can you wait until then? And Scott continues in this panic mode. He says, no, I really need to see him today. I really need to see him today. And the reception continues, said, Scott, I'm really sorry, but the schedules are all booked up. The only thing I can do is I can pencil you in for a 30-minute slot before the regular business day starts. Scott really immediately is like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. So she tells Scott, okay, be at the office tomorrow morning, 7:30 sharp. He agrees, and they hang up. And sure enough, Scott's at the office door bright and early the following morning. Go out and I pick up him. I say, come on in, Scott, and I invite him in and I ask him, can you sit down, Scott? I pour the two of us coffee and I ask him, so Scott, what's going on? What's the big panic? The receptionist says that you were in a proper state yesterday afternoon. Is everything okay with the business? Scott, he looks at me with this sad look on his face and he says, James, yeah, everything's going good with the business. That's not what this is about. He said, it's my wife. I say, okay, so it's about your wife. I don't understand, Scott. Is everything okay? Has something happened to her? And he shakes his head and he says, no, James, it's nothing like that. He says, everything's okay. He says, but something, James? He says, here's the thing. He says, I'm trying to grow the business and I'm trying to make more money for the family and I'm trying to build a better life for the family, and I just don't know. He says, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. My wife just doesn't seem to get it. For all the positive things I'm doing to grow the business and give my family this better life and to drive better cars and to live in a bigger house, my wife just doesn't get it. She's just like this anchor around my neck. It's constantly pulling me down. And I looked at Scott, puzzled, and I said, okay, Scott. I says, can you help me understand a little bit more. I says, what exactly is she doing or not doing that's making you feel so panicky? Scott lets out this deep sigh and he says, well, he says, you know, James, he says, I've been working longer hours than I normally do, and maybe I'm a little bit more distracted than I usually am, and you know, I'm always thinking about what I've got to do the next day and stuff like that. He said, and I'm not a step through the door and my she's yelling at me, and you're 2 hours late, and I had dinner on the table and now it's went cold, and the kids needed help with their homework and you weren't here to help me, and you're supposed to be picking up the milk on the way home from work, and guess what? You forgot it again. And he continues, he says, James, you know, he says, I feel like my head is spinning all the time. Nothing I do is ever good enough. As I said, it's like this anchor around my neck and it just feels like it's pulling me down, and James, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I nod my head and I said, okay, Scott. I said, do you mind if I ask you another question? He says, yeah, go ahead, James. Yeah, no problem. I says, do you believe that everything in life has cause and effect? He replied, yes, absolutely. He says, I absolutely believe in that, James. Of course I do. I said, okay, Scott, do you think that the only way that you can get what you want in life is by helping other people get what they want in life? And again, he replied, yep, absolutely, James. He says, you know, we talked about that in one of your programs that I was on, and that's how I met you. He says, if I remember correctly, it was, you know, we talked about this in detail in one of our meetings just a few months ago. So, yeah, absolutely, I believe in this. You know, it's you know, in fact, I try to focus on it daily when I'm working with my clients. It's what's actually allowing me to grow my client relationships, James. Yeah, I absolutely believe that's true. So I said, okay, Scott, that's perfect. So let me ask you one final question. What does your wife want in life, Scott? Scott sits up and he stares and he continues his, James, what do you mean? What does my wife want? I said, okay. I says, let's look at it this way. He says, you've just finished telling me what it is that you want in life. You said you're trying to grow your business and you're trying to make more money and you're trying to build a better life and you want to have drive a better car and you want to have a bigger house. And you've just told me about all the things that you want in life. But what is it your wife wants in life, Scott? And he kind of went, with these big wide eyes, and he almost like this whiteness came across his face. He says, James, I don't know. I've never actually asked her. I replied, okay, Scott, let's look into this a little bit further. He says, I know you've got a couple of kids, Scott, right? He said, yep. He said, I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 older daughters and I've got a younger son. And I looked at him, I said, okay. I said, Scott, do you know what's important to your kids' life right now? Do you know what's important in their worlds? And again, he kind of looked at me and, oh, no idea. Scott, when was the last time you got down on the floor and played games with your sons or your daughters, or played trucks with a little boy? When was the last time you spent quality time with them? And Scott looks at me and says, you know, James, it's funny you should say that. He says, just the other night, my oldest daughter commented that Daddy comes home, he reads the newspaper, he watches TV. She told me, Dad, you're no fun anymore. You're so boring. And he started to have this sad look in his face. And I looked at him and I says, kind of funny she would say that, don't you think, Scott? I said, you know, Scott, you're all upset this morning because the people in your world aren't supporting you and your drive for success and what you want from life. Now, they're not helping you achieve what you want in life, Scott, because you're not helping them first. You're not taking the time to understand what they want in life. Now, I know that's not happening, Scott, because you've just told me that you don't know what they want. You've never taken the time to find out what's important to them and make that important to you. I said, listen, Scott, I suggest making it your mission in life from this day forward. I want you to go home and I want you to find out what's important to the people in your life. The people who play the most significant part of achieving your goals. Make it your mission to help them get what they want, and I guarantee you they will support you every step of the way. And this is one of the most important lessons you will learn in our leadership journey here together. Find out what's important to the people in your business or organisation and make it important to you. If you want support from your family or friends, find out what's important to them and make it important to you. We call this servant leadership, or the willingness to genuinely invest. Now, I actually remember going through this exact same process with my wife many years ago, and yes, when I asked her the question, babe, what exactly is it you want from life? What's really important to you? She looked at me as if I was speaking Swahili or a language that she'd never heard before. But it profoundly affected, both of us. Once I understood what was important to my wife and I made that important to me, our relationship completely changed. Now, I've got to mention, it does help that my wife is also the co-founder of this business, The Power Within Training. Now, if you remember one of the previous lessons, I asked you to think about a person or an individual in your life who made an impact. And I asked you if they asked you to do a favour, if they called you up out the blue, 100% of you said yes, they would do you a favour. Now, that's the law of service. That person made such an impact on you that you wouldn't even hesitate to do them a favour right now, tomorrow. Correct? And that's the reason why you would still do them a favour all of these years later. It's rooted in the law of service. They made what was important to you and they made it important to them.